settle into the sleepy mind channel. Tonight, we will travel back into the Mesozoic era, a lost world that lasted for more than 100 million years. Long before humanity existed, giant dinosaurs crossed endless forests, while flying reptiles drifted above ancient coastlines and enormous marine reptiles moved beneath inland seas. Entire ecosystems rose and vanished while the continents drifted apart beneath prehistoric skies. This was a world larger, stranger, and older than most people truly realize. Giant sauropods heavier than modern airplanes walked across river plains covered in ferns. Predators hunted through forests filled with towering conifers and early flowering plants. The first feathered dinosaurs appeared during these ages, and the surviving dinosaur lineage still exists around us today in the form of modern birds. Tonight, we will explore the full rise and fall of the dinosaur world, from the harsh deserts of the Triassic to the giant forests of the Jurassic and the final age of Tyrannosaurus during the Cretaceous. We will explore drifting continents, inland seas, giant predators, ancient oceans, feathered dinosaurs, and the extinction event that changed life on Earth forever. If you enjoy videos like these, feel free to like and subscribe. More videos are posted every week, and you can also explore the channel playlists for a wide range of relaxing history and science topics designed for long overnight listening sessions. Now, allow the modern world to grow quiet around you as we step backward toward an Earth filled with giant forests, ancient rivers, and dinosaurs wandering beneath unfamiliar stars. The Triassic came first. It began after the catastrophic extinction that nearly erased life at the end of the Permian period. Earth during the Triassic often appeared harsh, dry and uncertain compared with later dinosaur ages. Ecosystems were rebuilding themselves after immense devastation. Early dinosaurs remained relatively small and competed alongside many strange reptilian groups that no longer exist today. Forests spread cautiously through recovering environments while deserts occupied enormous stretches of land beneath the heat of Pangaea. After ages, the Jurassic period emerged. This is often the age people picture first when imagining dinosaurs. Environments became greener and more humid across many regions. Massive conifer forests spread across river plains. Giant sauropods wandered through those ancient landscapes, with necks rising high above the ground like living cranes. Predators grew larger as ecosystems became richer and more complex. Then came the Cretaceous, the final and longest chapter of the Mesozoic. Flowering plants spread across the world during this period, transforming ecosystems in profound ways. Insects evolved alongside these new plants in increasingly specialized relationships. Familiar-looking environments began appearing in some regions, even while giant dinosaurs still dominated the land. It was a world where creatures like Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops lived beneath trees that would not seem entirely foreign to modern eyes. What makes this history especially fascinating is that no creature living through the Mesozoic could ever understand the full scope of what was happening around them. Dinosaurs experienced only individual lifetimes. A single animal might witness seasonal floods, migrations, droughts, or storms, but never the opening of oceans or the drifting of continents. Those changes unfolded too for any living mind to perceive directly. Only much later would intelligent observers piece together the evidence preserved in stone. Today, scientists uncover those clues layer by layer. Ancient coastlines appear in rocks far inland. Fossil seashells emerge from dry mountains. Sediment patterns reveal vanished rivers and ancient climates. Even footprints pressed into mud can preserve moments from worlds lost beyond imagination. Each discovery adds another small piece to the enormous puzzle of the Mesozoic Earth. The Triassic period began in the long shadow of catastrophe. Before the first true dinosaurs appeared, Earth had already endured one of the most devastating extinction events in the history of life. Near the end of the Permian period, enormous volcanic eruptions released immense quantities of gases into the atmosphere over time. Oceans changed chemically. Temperatures shifted dramatically. Many ecosystems collapsed under pressures that spread across both land and sea. Forests had thinned in many regions. Food chains were damaged or missing entirely. Recovery did not happen quickly. Nature rebuilt itself across ages, one generation at a time. Rivers still crossed ancient valleys. Rain still fell over distant mountains. The planet was alive, but many familiar ecological systems no longer existed. Life had been forced backward into a period of uncertainty. In some regions, hardy plants spread cautiously through damaged environments, while strange reptiles wandered across recovering landscapes, searching for food and shelter. The balance of nature had not yet stabilized. Evolution was still experimenting with new possibilities after the collapse of older worlds. At this point in history, dinosaurs were not yet dominant creatures. In fact, early dinosaur ancestors occupied only small corners of a much larger and stranger ecosystem. Other reptilian groups competed for territory and resources. Some resembled crocodiles standing upright on long legs. Others developed unusual body forms that no longer exist in the modern world. The Triassic often feels unfamiliar compared with the more famous dinosaur periods, because so many of its animals belong to lineages that later vanished entirely. The supercontinent Pangaea still stretched across enormous portions of the globe during this time. Its sheer scale shaped nearly every aspect of climate and weather. Interior regions remained especially dry because moisture struggled to travel far inland from distant oceans. Huge desert belts spread across the center of the continent beneath powerful sunlight and seasonal heat. Some areas may have looked almost endless, with dunes extending toward distant horizons, broken only by scattered vegetation and winding river systems. Modern deserts can already feel immense and quiet, though the deserts of the Triassic existed on scales difficult to compare directly with anything alive today. The interior of Pangaea covered such enormous distances that weather systems behaved differently from those of the modern world. Seasonal monsoons may have drenched some regions during certain times of year, while other areas remained harsh and dry for long stretches. Ancient rivers sometimes crossed river plains before disappearing into temporary lakes or inland basins beneath the heat. Even within these severe environments, life suited in surprisingly resilient ways. Tough plants spread across difficult ground. Ferns and primitive conifers survived where conditions allowed enough moisture. Insects continued filling ecological roles that had existed long before the dinosaurs themselves. Small reptiles hunted among rocks, river banks, and sparse vegetation. Earth was rebuilding, though not weakly. The earliest dinosaurs moved through this uncertain world. Compared with the giant creatures that later defined the Mesozoic in popular imagination, these early forms appeared modest and lightly built. Many were relatively small animals, with slender legs, suited for movement across open terrain. Some likely hunted insects or smaller reptiles. Others may have fed opportunistically on whatever food sources remained available in unstable ecosystems. They were survivors rather than rulers. Unlike many sprawling reptiles, early dinosaurs walked with legs positioned more directly beneath the body. This arrangement allowed more efficient movement across long distances and may have helped them remain active for extended periods. In dry and competitive environments, efficient movement could make a tremendous difference. A creature capable of traveling farther while using less energy held a valuable advantage. At the time, however, no clear sign suggested that dinosaurs would eventually dominate the planet for ages. They existed beside many competitors equally suited to Triassic life. Some crocodile relatives became powerful predators. Other reptilian groups spread widely across different habitats. Evolution had not chosen a single ruling lineage. The future remained uncertain. That uncertainty gives the Triassic period a fascinating atmosphere compared with later ages. The Jurassic often feels stable and grand in comparison, filled with giant herbivores and immense predators living inside rich ecosystems. The Triassic feels more fragile and experimental. New forms of life appeared, while older lineages faded away. Ecosystems shifted repeatedly as climates changed and species competed for survival. Earth still carried scars from the extinction that came before it. At first, there is little reason to predict what lies ahead. Small beginnings rarely reveal the full scale of future outcomes. A handful of adaptable species wandering through dry valleys and river plains would eventually give rise to creatures larger than any land animals before them. Yet during the Triassic, that future remained invisible. The landscapes themselves must have appeared dramatic and severe. Vast river plains stretched between dry uplands. Seasonal storms crossed enormous skies above scattered forests and broad river systems. Dust moved across open ground beneath intense sunlight. Volcanic activity still shaped parts of the world as Earth stabilized after earlier catastrophe. At night, temperatures may have dropped sharply across exposed desert interiors, while unfamiliar reptilian calls echoed through darkness. Before the extinction at the end of the Permian, completely different creatures filled many ecological roles. After the extinction, opportunities opened for new groups to expand into emptied environments. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout Earth's history. Catastrophe destroys older systems, while simultaneously creating space for unexpected survivors to flourish afterward. Scientists sometimes describe evolution less as a straight ladder and more as a branching network filled with experiments, dead ends, and sudden changes in direction. The Triassic demonstrates this clearly. Countless species emerged during this rebuilding age, though many disappeared long before the later dinosaur empires reached their height. Fossils preserve only fragments of those ancient lives, yet together they reveal ecosystems struggling towards stability over time. The deeper one looks into the Triassic, the more alive and complex it becomes. It was not simply an introduction before the more famous Jurassic period arrived. It was a complete world shaped by recovery, evolutionary change, and uncertainty. Every forest, river valley, and desert basin carried traces of both destruction and renewal. The earliest dinosaurs formed only one part of that larger transformation unfolding across the supercontinent. Earth did not rebuild itself quickly after catastrophe. Life returned through cycles too slow for any single creature to fully perceive. Forests spread over generations beyond counting. Rivers shifted course across ancient plains. Eventually, the Triassic world would change again. Some competing reptilian groups would vanish during later extinction events. Dinosaurs, once modest participants in recovering ecosystems, would expand into newly available ecological roles with remarkable success. But during these early ages, they remained only one thread within a vast and uncertain tapestry of life, rebuilding itself after disaster. As the Triassic world continued unfolding across ages, dinosaurs began expanding into more environments. Their rise did not happen suddenly. There was no single moment when the planet shifted from belonging to one group of creatures to another. Instead, the process moved through countless generations as ecosystems changed and opportunities appeared. The earliest dinosaurs remained relatively small for a long time, living beside many other reptilian groups that seemed equally capable of success. Some of the most powerful competitors during this age were ancient relatives of crocodiles. Modern crocodiles often appear slow while resting beside rivers, though their ancient relatives were far more diverse. Certain species walked upright on long legs and moved actively across dry land. Others became swift predators capable of chasing prey through open environments. A few even developed body shapes that would look almost unfamiliar to modern eyes. During parts of the Triassic, these reptilian lineages may have appeared better established than the earliest dinosaurs themselves. The future rulers of the Mesozoic did not begin as obvious giants waiting to take over the world. Dinosaurs started among many competing groups, inside ecosystems, still recovering from earlier catastrophe. Evolution had not yet selected clear winners. Countless species spread into open ecological roles, while climates shifted and continents continued drifting across the globe. The ancient river plains of the Triassic must have felt alive with competition. Predators hunted along muddy shorelines, while smaller reptiles searched for insects among low vegetation. Seasonal rains transformed dry regions into temporary wetlands before heat returned once again. Herds of early herbivores crossed broad plains beneath enormous skies. Forests of primitive conifers spread near water sources while dry interior lands remained exposed beneath powerful sunlight. Within these changing landscapes, dinosaurs possess certain advantages that may have helped them survive and spread. One important feature involved their posture. Their legs rested more directly beneath the body rather than sprawling outward to the sides. This allowed more efficient movement and greater endurance across long distances. In difficult climates, where food and water could become scarce, efficient travel mattered greatly. An animal capable of covering larger territory without exhausting itself held a strong advantage over slower competitors. Breathing systems may also have played a role. If true, this could have helped them remain active even during demanding conditions. The Triassic world often experienced environmental extremes. Heat, drought, seasonal instability, and changing habitats all placed pressure on living creatures. Species that suited efficiently gained opportunities to spread into new regions. Yet even as dinosaurs expanded, they remained part of a much larger ecological network. Giant amphibians still occupied rivers and wetlands in some areas. Strange armored reptiles moved across river plains. Predators unrelated to dinosaurs hunted successfully through forests and deserts alike. The Triassic world did not belong entirely to any single lineage. It was a crowded evolutionary landscape filled with experimentation. Many groups competed for ecological roles, while Earth itself changed around them. Certain lineages flourished briefly before disappearing forever. Others survived for ages without becoming dominant. Dinosaurs happened to possess a combination of traits that eventually allowed them to succeed under changing conditions, though during the early Triassic, that outcome was far from guaranteed. The Jurassic often feels settled by comparison. Giant herbivores and massive predators filled ecosystems that had become rich and stable over time. The Triassic feels more transitional, almost like a world still searching for its future identity after surviving catastrophe. Volcanic activity continued shaping parts of the planet during these ages as well. Earth remained geologically active beneath the supercontinent. Lava flows and tectonic forces altered landscapes over long periods, while climates shifted from region to region. Massive storms may have crossed the interior deserts of Pangaea, bringing sudden floods through dry valleys before disappearing once again into heat and dust. Rivers changed course repeatedly across river plains, carrying sediment that would eventually harden into rock, preserving traces of ancient life. Many of the first dinosaurs likely lived relatively modest lives compared with the giants that came later. Some hunted small prey through open woodland environments. Others traveled cautiously across river banks searching for food and shelter. Their bodies were lightly built and agile rather than enormous. This gradual rise reflects an important truth about evolution itself. Major changes often begin. The most successful groups in Earth's history rarely appear fully formed from the beginning. Instead, they emerge through countless small advantages, accumulating over immense stretches of time. Tiny differences in movement, breathing, feeding, or survival can eventually reshape entire ecosystems when given ages to unfold. Earlier catastrophes had emptied many ecological roles, allowing new groups to expand into spaces once occupied by vanished species. Later extinction events during the Triassic would continue reshaping the balance of life yet again. Some major reptilian competitors disappeared, while dinosaurs survived and expanded further afterward. Scientists still study exactly why certain groups vanished while dinosaurs endured. Climate instability likely contributed. Volcanic eruptions may have altered atmospheric conditions across large regions. Changing ecosystems place pressure on species unable to adapt quickly enough. Dinosaurs, with their efficient movement and adaptable lifestyles, appear to have navigated these disruptions more successfully than many competitors. Across ages, those advantages accumulated. Dinosaurs spread into wider territories. New species emerged with increasingly specialized forms. Some became more effective predators, while others suited toward herbivorous lifestyles. Ecosystems shifted around them as they occupied larger ecological roles. The process remained slow enough that no living creature could ever witness the full transformation directly. Small reptiles scatter through low vegetation. Primitive conifers rise beside muddy banks. Distant thunder rolls across the desert horizon, while predators move cautiously through fading light. Somewhere nearby, an early dinosaur searches for food, without any awareness that its descendants will one day dominate Earth for over 100 million years. The age contained possibilities not yet realized. Beneath the harsh climates and uncertain ecosystems, evolutionary pathways were already unfolding toward outcomes impossible for any living creature to foresee. The great dinosaur dynasties of later ages began here among modest animals surviving in difficult environments across the vast supercontinent. Over time, the balance would continue shifting. Competing reptilian groups would decline after later environmental crises. Dinosaurs would expand into newly available roles with increasing success. Their bodies would grow larger. Their ecosystems would become richer and more complex. Entire landscapes would eventually reshape around their dominance. Throughout the history of life on Earth, dominance rarely lasts forever. Entire groups of creatures can flourish across ages before suddenly declining when environments change around them. The Triassic period revealed this pattern with unusual clarity. Countless lineages competed for survival across the recovering landscapes of Pangaea, though only some would continue into later ages. Dinosaurs were still only one branch among many, sharing the world with reptiles whose descendants would eventually disappear completely from the planet. Many of these competing creatures looked strange compared with modern animals. Some reptilian predators stood upright on powerful hind legs while balancing long tails behind them. Others carried armored plates across their backs or possessed elongated skulls filled with sharp teeth suited for hunting. Certain crocodile relatives became swift runners capable of chasing prey across dry river plains. A few lineages evolved massive bodies that rivaled the size of later dinosaurs. The Triassic world was filled with experimentation. This variety existed because evolution responds constantly to changing conditions. After the catastrophic extinction at the end of the Permian period, ecological roles across the planet stood partially empty. Predators, scavengers, herbivores, and aquatic hunters all faced reduced competition in many environments. Nature began rebuilding itself through evolutionary change and diversification. Species spread into opportunities left behind by vanished creatures, testing countless survival strategies across forests, wetlands, deserts, and river valleys. The process resembles what happens after a powerful wildfire passes through a modern forest. At first, the landscape appears damaged and stripped bare, yet over time, new plants begin emerging through ash-covered ground. Different species compete for sunlight and space. Some survive only briefly, while others establish deeper roots and spread more successfully through the recovering environment. Earth after the Permian extinction followed a similar pattern, though across scales vastly larger and slower than any modern forest recovery. During the Triassic, dinosaurs gained ground within this rebuilding world. They did not eliminate competitors immediately. Instead, they expanded as conditions shifted around them. Some reptilian groups remained successful for ages beside them. Others declined when climates changed or ecosystems reorganized. Evolution works less like a dramatic battle and more like a long series of shifting pressures unfolding across immense stretches of time. Extinction events often play a powerful role in these transitions. Although the word extinction can sound sudden, many disappearances happen through environmental stress, changing climates, volcanic activity, habitat loss, or competition. Species suited to one world may struggle when conditions transform into something different. Creatures capable of flexibility and evolutionary change sometimes survive where more specialized groups cannot. Late in the Triassic, another significant extinction event altered the balance of life once again. Massive volcanic eruptions associated with the splitting of Pangaea released enormous quantities of gases into the atmosphere. Climates shifted. Ecosystems faced renewed pressure. Some reptilian competitors that had previously flourished began disappearing from large portions of the world. Dinosaurs, however, appear to have survived these disruptions more successfully than many rival groups. This moment proved enormously important in the history of life. Once major competitors declined, dinosaurs expanded rapidly into newly available ecological roles. Predatory species increased in size and variety. Herbivorous forms diversified into larger body plans suited for feeding across broad landscapes. Entire ecosystems reorganized around dinosaur dominance. Yet even here, the process remained surprisingly slow when measured against human experience. Millions upon ages passed while these transitions occurred. Generations beyond counting lived and vanished during the shift from Triassic competition toward Jurassic dominance. One fascinating thing about extinction is that it can simultaneously represent destruction and opportunity. The disappearance of older groups opened space for new forms of life to emerge and expand. Mammals would later benefit from the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs near the end of the Cretaceous. In much the same way, dinosaurs benefited from earlier environmental upheavals. Earth's history repeatedly follows this pattern of collapse followed by renewal. Catastrophe has struck the planet many times. Asteroids have fallen, volcanoes have reshaped climates, continents have drifted apart, oceans have changed chemistry. Yet life continues adapting, recovering, and diversifying despite extraordinary challenges. Dinosaurs themselves became masters of evolutionary change once opportunities expanded before them. Some species evolved long necks capable of reaching high vegetation above the ground. Others developed powerful jaws suited for hunting large prey. Certain dinosaurs formed herds for protection, while feathered species experimented with body coverings that would eventually contribute to the evolution of birds. Their success did not come from a single perfect design. It emerged from diversification across many environments over time. The breakup of Pangaea also contributed to this diversification. As continents separated, populations became isolated from one another. Different climates and habitats encouraged distinct evolutionary pathways. Dinosaurs living in one region differed from relatives elsewhere. Over ages, entirely new species emerged as ecosystems grew more varied across the changing planet. Reptilian predators patrol muddy riverbanks beside creatures that will one day vanish from Earth forever. Nearby, small dinosaur species search cautiously for food among low vegetation. None of these animals can perceive the larger historical turning unfolding around them. The later dominance of dinosaurs can sometimes make earlier competitors seem unimportant, though those vanished groups formed essential parts of the Triassic world. They influenced ecosystems, shaped food chains, and occupied evolutionary roles that affected the rise of later species. Earth's history is filled with forgotten dynasties whose influence survives only through fossils buried in ancient stone. Researchers describe the history of life as a constantly changing mosaic rather than a simple ladder of progress. Different groups rise, spread, decline, and disappear depending on environmental conditions. Success in one age does not guarantee survival in the next. Dinosaurs themselves would eventually face this reality at the end of the Cretaceous, after more than 100 million years of extraordinary success. During the late Triassic, however, their future still stretched ahead of them. Environmental upheaval had weakened many competitors, while dinosaurs continued spreading into newly available ecological roles. Their bodies became larger and more specialized. Predators grew more capable. Herbivores developed forms suited for consuming vast amounts of vegetation across expanding forests and river plains. Climate shifted toward warmer and wetter conditions across broad areas of the planet. Forests thickened. River systems expanded. Plant life became increasingly abundant. These changing environments would soon support some of the largest land animals Earth has ever known. Looking back across these immense spans of time, it becomes clear that the rise of dinosaurs was never guaranteed from the beginning. Their dominance emerged through survival, evolutionary change, environmental change, and repeated ecological opportunity. Small, resilient creatures living among many competitors expanded until they became the defining animals of an entire era. By the beginning of the Jurassic period, the world had started changing into something far greener and more expansive than the harsh landscapes that dominated much of the Triassic. Forests thickened across broad regions of the planet. River systems widened through fertile river plains. Ferns spread beneath towering conifers, while mild climates encouraged abundant plant growth across many environments. It had fully arrived. The Jurassic world often feels immense when imagined properly, not only because of the animals themselves, but because nearly everything about the environment operated on a grand scale. Forests stretched across enormous territories without interruption from cities, roads, or human settlement. Floodplains extended for distances difficult to picture clearly. Rivers wandered through ancient valleys while herds of giant herbivores moved across the land in numbers that may have reshaped entire ecosystems around them. Among the most extraordinary animals of the Jurassic were the sauropods. These enormous, long-necked dinosaurs became some of the largest land creatures Earth has ever produced. Species such as Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, and Apatosaurus carried bodies so immense that even modern elephants appear modest beside them. Some stretched longer than modern city buses. Others raised their heads high above the ground, with necks resembling living towers moving through forests. A giraffe possesses height, though not the overwhelming mass of a sauropod. An elephant carries impressive weight, though not the astonishing length. Sauropods combined enormous size with remarkable body proportions, unlike anything alive today. Their tails alone could extend tremendous distances behind them, while column-like legs supported bodies weighing many tons. Their footsteps would have carried deep vibrations through wet ground near rivers and lakes. Entire pathways may have formed, where repeated migrations flattened vegetation beneath immense weight over generations. Despite their size, sauropods were herbivores feeding largely on plant material. Their long necks allowed them to reach vegetation across broad areas without constantly moving their massive bodies. Some species likely fed high among conifer branches, while others swept their necks lower across ferns and ground plants. Forests during the Jurassic produced enormous amounts of vegetation under mild climates and high atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, helping sustain these giant ecosystems. The existence of such massive animals raises fascinating scientific questions. How did creatures this large breathe, move, and survive successfully on land? Their skeletons reveal remarkable engineering shaped through evolution over ages. Many bones contained air-filled spaces that reduced weight while preserving strength. Their legs acted like powerful pillars capable of supporting tremendous mass. Their hearts likely pumped blood across extraordinary distances through bodies longer than some modern vehicles. Warm mist rises from river plains during early morning light. Giant herbivores move beside winding rivers bordered by dense forests of conifers and cycads. Insects hum through humid air, while smaller dinosaurs dart cautiously beneath towering bodies. Pterosaurs drift overhead on warm currents rising from the landscape. The plant life of the Jurassic also played an essential role in shaping these ecosystems. Flowering plants had not yet spread widely across the world. Instead, forests were dominated by conifers, ferns, cycads, horsetails, and other ancient vegetation. Some trees reached enormous heights, while thick fern growth carpeted the forest floor beneath them. River valleys and wetlands supported especially dense plant life, creating rich feeding grounds for giant herbivores. Jurassic climates remained warmer than much of the modern world. Polar ice was limited or absent during many periods. Forests spread far into regions that today experience cold seasonal temperatures. Rainfall patterns supported extensive vegetation across broad territories, though climates still varied between different regions of the planet. Some areas remained relatively dry, while others became lush and humid. The continents also continued drifting apart during this age. The breakup of Pangaea progressed further as enormous geological forces reshaped Earth over ages. New coastlines formed, while shallow seas spread into certain regions. Volcanic activity and tectonic movement continued altering landscapes beneath the lives of Jurassic creatures. Dinosaurs moved through ecosystems built upon a planet still transforming itself from within. Giant herbivores consumed tremendous quantities of vegetation every day. Predators followed herds across river plains and forests, searching for weakness or opportunity. Rivers carried nutrients through broad valleys, while plant life converted sunlight into the vast biological abundance supporting these immense animals. Entire ecosystems operated on scales far larger than most modern environments. The sound would likely arrive first as low vibrations carried through the earth itself, before individual footsteps became audible. Trees might tremble slightly as giant bodies passed nearby. Ferns and shrubs would flatten beneath enormous feet, while smaller creatures scattered through undergrowth, seeking safety from accidental crushing rather than direct attack. Despite their intimidating size, many sauropods probably lived relatively peaceful lives, focused primarily on feeding, migration, and survival. Their greatest protection came from sheer scale. Fully grown adults may have faced few threats besides the largest predators. Juveniles, however, remained vulnerable and likely required protection through herd behavior or rapid growth into safer body sizes. The Jurassic also introduced a sense of stability compared with the uncertainty of earlier Triassic ecosystems. Dinosaur dominance had become firmly established across many environments. Giant herbivores shaped landscapes through feeding patterns and migration routes. Predators evolved alongside them within increasingly specialized ecological systems. The age of experimentation had transformed into an age of enormous biological success. Still, even within this seeming stability, the world changed. Species evolved, climates shifted, continents drifted apart. New ecological pressures appeared while others faded away. The Jurassic world existed within a continuous process of transformation unfolding across ages. The largest creatures alive today mostly inhabit the oceans, where water helps support tremendous mass. The Jurassic produced giant animals, moving entirely across land beneath open skies and through thick forests. Their existence remains one of the most astonishing achievements in the history of evolution. Even now, fossils of sauropods continue emerging from ancient rock layers around the world. Massive vertebrae, enormous limb bones, and long trackways preserve traces of animals that once crossed prehistoric river plains in slow-moving herds. Some footprints remain so large that a person could stand comfortably inside them. These ancient traces remind us that Earth once belonged to creatures operating on scales almost beyond imagination. The Jurassic period transformed dinosaurs from successful survivors into true giants of the planet. Their ecosystems expanded across continents, while enormous herbivores wandered beneath forests, unlike anything in the modern world. The Jurassic world reached levels of biological scale that still feel difficult to fully absorb. Across river plains and immense forests, giant dinosaurs moved through ecosystems so vast that modern comparisons often seem inadequate. The largest land animals in Earth's history lived during this age. Their bodies reshaped the environments around them simply through movement, feeding, and migration. Forests bent beneath their weight. Ancient trails formed where herds crossed repeatedly through soft ground. Some sauropods may have reached lengths greater than 30 meters from head to tail. Their necks stretched outward with astonishing reach, while tails balanced enormous bodies moving across prehistoric terrain. Standing near such an animal would likely feel less like observing a living creature and more like standing beside moving architecture. Their rib cages rose high above the ground, while thick legs supported immense weight with surprising stability. Every step pressed deeply into floodplain mud and riverbank sediment, sometimes leaving footprints that would harden into stone and survive for ages. Even conservative calculations place some species among the heaviest land animals ever known. Yet despite their size, these creatures spent much of their lives engaged in ordinary survival activities. They searched for vegetation, migrated across feeding territories, drank from rivers, and protected younger members of herds from predators. The Jurassic forests surrounding these giants differed greatly from modern woodlands. Flowering plants had not yet transformed terrestrial ecosystems. Instead, enormous conifers dominated many regions, while cycads and ancient fern species spread thickly across the ground below. Horsetails grew near wetlands and riverbanks in dense clusters resembling oversized reeds. Warm, humid climates encouraged abundant vegetation that stretched across valleys, river plains, and coastal regions. Fern-covered river plains became especially important within Jurassic ecosystems. During wet seasons, rivers overflowed their banks and spread nutrient-rich sediment across broad lowlands. Ferns flourished in these conditions, creating vast green carpets beneath conifer forests. Giant herbivores moved through these environments, feeding continuously to sustain their tremendous body mass. Smaller dinosaurs darted among the undergrowth, while insects filled the warm air with constant movement and sound. Among the more distinctive dinosaurs of the Jurassic were the stegosaurs. These herbivorous animals carried rows of large plates rising along their backs and tails, lined with dangerous spikes for defense. Stegosaurs moved on 4 sturdy legs while feeding on low vegetation across forest edges and river plains. Compared with the towering sauropods, they appeared shorter and more heavily built, though still impressive in size by modern standards. The exact purpose of the plates along a stegosaur back remains a topic of scientific discussion. Some researchers believe the plates helped regulate body temperature by releasing heat through blood vessels near the surface. Others suggest the framework served display purposes, making individuals appear larger or more visually striking to rivals and potential mates. It is possible the plates performed several functions at once. Nature often reuses biological features in multiple ways across evolution. The animal lowers its head toward vegetation, while the large plates along its back catch warm light against the surrounding greenery. Nearby rivers carry sediment through broad valleys, where giant sauropods move in the distance like slow-living cranes above the forest canopy. Jurassic ecosystems contain remarkable variety despite their ancient appearance. Different dinosaur species occupied specialized ecological roles depending on body size, feeding behavior, and habitat preference. Some herbivores fed high among trees, while others grazed closer to the ground. Predators suited toward hunting different prey types across forests, river plains, and open terrain. Rivers, wetlands, and coastal environments supported additional layers of biodiversity beyond the land itself. Warm temperatures extended across broad portions of the planet. Humidity remained high near forests and wetlands, while seasonal rains nourished extensive plant growth. Mist may have gathered over river plains during early mornings before sunlight burned through rising moisture. The air itself carried scents of wet vegetation, mud, resin from conifer trees, and stagnant water along ancient river systems. At night, these landscapes must have become deeply atmospheric. Giant silhouettes moved beneath moonlit forests, while distant calls echoed across wetlands and valleys. Insects produced constant background sound through thick vegetation. Small predators hunted beneath the shadows of far larger animals resting nearby. Rivers reflected unfamiliar constellations overhead, while winds crossed the immense Jurassic world. Jurassic landscapes stretched uninterrupted for enormous distances. Forests continued beyond horizons. River systems wandered across continents still separating from one another. Giant animals migrated through environments operating according to rhythms far older and slower than human civilization. The immense scale of these worlds can even alter the way time feels when imagined. Modern life moves quickly through schedules, machines, and constant information. The Jurassic unfolded according to slower natural cycles. Seasons shifted across river plains and forests. Herds migrated patiently through feeding territories. Rivers carved valleys grain by grain over time. Predators also thrived within these lush ecosystems. Though giant herbivores dominated the landscape visually, large carnivorous dinosaurs followed them through forests and open plains searching for vulnerable prey. The Jurassic food chain supported increasingly specialized hunters capable of bringing down enormous animals under the right conditions. Yet even predation formed part of the larger balance sustaining these ancient worlds. Researchers describe Jurassic environments as among the most productive terrestrial ecosystems Earth has ever produced. Warm climates, abundant vegetation, and stable conditions supported extraordinary biomass across many regions. Dinosaurs achieved immense size, partly because these ecosystems could sustain them energetically over ages. Giant herbivores moved through fern-covered valleys beneath towering conifers, while continents drifted apart under warm skies. Rivers wandered through landscapes ruled by dinosaurs, whose bodies still challenge the limits of what land animals can become. For a long time, people imagined dinosaurs as enormous scaly reptiles, completely separate from the birds that move through modern skies today. Museums displayed giant skeletons with rough skin and reptilian features, while films often portrayed dinosaurs as slow, heavy creatures disconnected from the natural world around us. Then, over the last several decades, fossil discoveries began changing that picture in remarkable ways. Evidence accumulated suggesting that many dinosaurs were not entirely scaly after all. Some possessed feathers. At first, the idea sounded strange to many people. Feathers seemed too delicate and familiar to belong to creatures associated with giant jaws and thunderous footsteps. Yet the fossil evidence became increasingly difficult to ignore. Paleontologists uncovered beautifully preserved remains showing feather-like frameworks surrounding the bodies and limbs of certain dinosaur species. Some fossils even preserved detailed impressions of plumage patterns within fine sediment laid down ages ago. These discoveries transformed the way scientists understand dinosaur evolution. Feathers were not inventions that appeared suddenly with birds. Instead, feather-like coverings likely existed among various groups of dinosaurs long before true birds emerged. In some species, these frameworks may have helped regulate body temperature. Others may have used feathers for display, camouflage, protection of eggs, or communication between individuals. Eventually, feathers would also become essential for flight in certain lineages. The idea that birds evolved from dinosaurs is now strongly supported by overwhelming evidence from anatomy, fossils, and evolutionary biology. Modern birds carry skeletal features inherited directly from small feathered dinosaur ancestors. Their hips, limbs, wishbones, and even aspects of their breathing systems reveal deep evolutionary connections stretching back into the Mesozoic world. In a real scientific sense, birds are living dinosaurs. That single fact changes the way many people look at ordinary life around them. A sparrow perched beside a sidewalk suddenly becomes something far more ancient than it first appears. The framework of its legs, the movement of its head, the shape of its claws, and the efficiency of its lungs all carry traces of evolutionary history extending back tens of ages. One branch survived. Small feathered descendants endured catastrophe, while larger non-avian dinosaurs disappeared from the planet. Every bird alive today represents continuity with that world. A robin lands on a branch outside a window, while soft light spreads across the early sky. Most people would simply recognize an ordinary bird beginning its day. Yet hidden within that familiar animal rests a lineage connected to predators and feathered hunters that once crossed forests during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. This connection becomes even more fascinating when examining the behavior of modern birds. Certain movements feel strikingly dinosaur-like once noticed. Chickens scratch the ground using motions similar to small theropod dinosaurs. Hawks and eagles grip prey with powerful clawed feet, inherited from predatory ancestors. Ostriches move across open ground, with body proportions surprisingly close to some ancient dinosaur species. Even the quick, alert turning of a bird's head carries echoes of deep evolutionary ancestry. The discovery of feathered dinosaurs also changed the visual image of Jurassic and Cretaceous ecosystems, likely contained far more texture and color than older reconstructions suggested. Feathered species may have displayed striped patterns, dark plumage, bright markings, or layered body coverings suited for insulation and display. Some small predators could have appeared almost bird-like in certain movements, while still clearly remaining dinosaurs. This realization makes the Mesozoic feel less distant and unfamiliar. Earlier generations often pictured dinosaurs as entirely alien creatures, belonging to a lost reptilian age, disconnected from the modern world. Feathered dinosaur discoveries reveal continuity instead. Evolution did not erase part of that world suited and survived into the present day. The fossil evidence supporting these ideas continues growing stronger with each decade. In certain regions of China, volcanic ash and fine sediments preserved extraordinary details of feathered dinosaur fossils. Scientists examined impressions showing branching feather frameworks similar to those found in birds today. Some species possessed long feathered tails, while others carried body coverings that likely helped maintain warmth. These discoveries also suggest that at least some dinosaurs may have been more active metabolically than earlier scientists believed. Feathers are often associated with temperature regulation and higher activity levels. Certain dinosaur species may have possessed warm-blooded characteristics closer to birds than to modern reptiles. The Mesozoic world may have been filled with energetic feathered animals moving quickly through forests and river plains beneath giant conifers and ferns. Feathers may have begun as insulation or display frameworks long before becoming useful for flight. Small changes accumulated across generations until some dinosaur descendants eventually achieved powered flight. Evolution rarely creates complex systems instantly. Instead, older frameworks transform into new forms serving different functions. The robin outside a window, the owl crossing a quiet evening sky, or the gull gliding above ocean waves all remain connected to evolutionary pathways stretching back into the Mesozoic. The gap between ancient Earth and modern life becomes smaller once these relationships are understood. The feathered dinosaurs themselves occupied many ecological roles during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Some hunted insects among forest undergrowth. Others pursued small vertebrates across open plains. Certain species likely climbed trees, while primitive wings assisted with balance or gliding movement. Their bodies bridged the evolutionary space between ground-dwelling dinosaurs and the first true birds. Meanwhile, giant sauropods still crossed river plains nearby, while stegosaurs moved among fern-covered forests. The Mesozoic was not divided neatly between giant reptiles and birds. Both existed together inside the same ecosystems. Feathered predators moved beneath towering herbivores, while pterosaurs drifted overhead through prehistoric skies. Dinosaurs were not dull, sluggish creatures wandering through silent swamps, as older images sometimes suggested. Many were active, social, adaptable animals, occupying diverse ecological roles across forests, wetlands, coastlines, and deserts. Feathers add another layer of richness to those worlds. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is that humanity discovered these connections only recently. For most of modern history, people had no idea that birds represented surviving dinosaurs. The evidence remained hidden beneath mountains, deserts, and ancient lakebeds, waiting patiently to be uncovered. Fossils preserved tiny details across unimaginable spans of time until scientists finally learned how to interpret them. Now, every modern bird carries quiet testimony from their feathers, bones, lungs, and movements, preserve biological memories older than humanity itself. Part of it still wakes each morning beside rivers, forests, coastlines, and cities all across the modern world. The Jurassic world was not peaceful simply because giant herbivores dominated the landscape. Wherever enormous herds existed, predators followed close behind. Across river plains, forests, and river valleys, carnivorous dinosaurs moved through the shadows of ecosystems, searching for weakness, opportunity, and survival. The age of giants required equally capable hunters to balance those immense biological systems. Among the most well-known predators of the Jurassic was Allosaurus. This large theropod dinosaur became one of the dominant carnivores of its time, stalking ancient river plains and forest edges across what is now North America. Compared with the later Tyrannosaurus, Allosaurus possessed a lighter build with long, muscular legs, powerful jaws, and sharp, serrated teeth designed for tearing flesh from prey. Its body combined speed, balance, and strength in ways that made it a highly effective hunter within Jurassic ecosystems. In the distance, giant sauropods feed among conifer forests, while smaller herbivores move carefully near the water. Somewhere beyond the tree line, an Allosaurus watches. Its body remains almost motionless, except for subtle breathing, while golden light filters through prehistoric vegetation. The predator waits patiently because survival often depended more on timing than pure force. Some evidence suggests it may have attacked large herbivores directly, possibly targeting weaker or younger individuals within herds. Other studies propose that it scavenged opportunistically when possible, while also hunting smaller prey more regularly. Like many predators in nature, it likely suited its behavior according to available opportunities, rather than following one rigid strategy. Its skull reveals fascinating details about Jurassic predation. Allosaurus possessed sharp, curved teeth built for slicing through flesh rather than crushing bone. Powerful neck muscles allowed rapid biting motions that may have inflicted repeated wounds on prey during attacks. The Jurassic food chain depended upon these predators as much as the giant herbivores themselves. Predation helps regulate populations within ecosystems by removing weaker or vulnerable individuals. Without predators, herbivore numbers can grow beyond what environments are capable of supporting. The Jurassic world operated through these same natural balances, though on scales vastly larger than modern terrestrial ecosystems. Yet the Mesozoic was not only a world of dinosaurs walking across land. The oceans of the Jurassic and later periods contained their own extraordinary ecosystems, filled with giant reptiles suited for marine life. Ancient seas stretched across parts of the continents, while warm, shallow waters supported enormous diversity beneath the surface. Among the most famous marine reptiles were the plesiosaurs. These animals moved through prehistoric oceans using broad flippers, powered by strong muscles beneath streamlined bodies. Many species possessed long necks, ending in relatively small heads, filled with sharp teeth for catching fish and other prey. Some plesiosaurs likely hunted by approaching schools of fish before striking rapidly with flexible neck movements. Others may have searched coastal waters and deeper marine environments for cephalopods or smaller marine reptiles. Fossils reveal a wide variety of plesiosaur species, suited to different ecological roles across Jurassic and Cretaceous oceans. Ancient fish scatter through coral-rich environments, while distant volcanic islands rise above the horizon. Entire ecosystems flourished far from the forests, and river plains ruled by dinosaurs on land. Another remarkable marine reptile group was the ichthyosaurs. Unlike plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs possessed body shapes surprisingly similar to modern dolphins or tuna. This resemblance developed through convergent evolution, where unrelated animals independently evolve similar solutions to comparable environmental challenges. Fast-swimming predators often develop streamlined forms because water strongly shapes movement and efficiency. Ichthyosaurs became some of the most effective marine hunters of the Mesozoic. Their large eyes suggest excellent underwater vision, possibly helping them hunt in dim conditions beneath the ocean surface. Some species reached impressive sizes while pursuing fish, squid-like cephalopods, and other prey through prehistoric seas. Fossils occasionally preserve extraordinary details, including stomach contents and even unborn young inside adult females. The oceans of the Jurassic world must have felt every bit as alive and dangerous as the land itself. Marine reptiles occupied ecological roles similar to sharks, dolphins, whales, and large predators in modern oceans, though they evolved entirely separately from those later animals. Warm seas supported rich food chains, stretching from microscopic plankton to giant hunters moving silently through deep water. Meanwhile, above these oceans, pterosaurs crossed the skies, searching coastlines and marine environments for food. Some species skimmed near the water surface, while others soared high above cliffs and beaches, using warm air currents rising from sunlit land. The Mesozoic world extended upward into the skies and downward into the oceans with astonishing ecological complexity. Their distant relatives once walked across ancient terrestrial environments, before later adapting back toward marine life over time. Evolution repeatedly demonstrates this flexibility, with lineages reshaping themselves according to environmental opportunity. The prehistoric seas themselves differed greatly from modern oceans in some regions. Warm, shallow inland seas spread across portions of the continents during different Mesozoic periods. Coral systems flourished beneath warmer climates, while marine reptiles crossed enormous distances through interconnected waterways. Coastlines shifted as continents drifted apart and sea levels rose or fell over ages. Giant conifer forests stretch inland, while warm waves move against broad beaches. Far below the surface, ichthyosaurs pursue schools of fish through glowing water, while plesiosaurs glide silently between shadows deeper below. Pterosaurs circle overhead, while distant dinosaur herds move along river valleys beyond the shore. The entire world feels immense, ancient, and filled with life moving through every layer of the environment. Some marine reptiles reached lengths rivaling modern whales. Others evolved specialized teeth, body shapes, and hunting strategies suited for particular prey. Predation, migration, reproduction, and survival unfolded continuously beneath waters that covered parts of the continents for ages. The oceans we know today once belonged to entirely different groups of creatures. Giant marine reptiles ruled warm prehistoric seas long before whales, dolphins, or seals ever existed. Entire marine dynasties rose and vanished while continents drifted across the surface of the planet. Even now, fossils of these ancient hunters emerge from cliffs, deserts, and mountains that were once submerged beneath Mesozoic oceans. Skeletons preserved within marine sediments reveal creatures that crossed vanished seas tens of ages before humanity appeared. Their bones remain as quiet reminders that the skies, coastlines, and oceans all belong to the immense living world of the Mesozoic. Far above the forests, rivers, and ancient seas of the Mesozoic, another extraordinary group of reptiles ruled the skies. While dinosaurs dominated the land and marine reptiles hunted beneath the oceans, pterosaurs crossed the air itself with wings stretching across warm prehistoric horizons. These remarkable flying reptiles were not birds and not dinosaurs, though they shared the same world for ages. Their existence gave the Mesozoic a sense of vertical scale, unlike anything the modern world can fully recreate. The first thing many people notice about pterosaurs is their size. Certain giant pterosaurs spread wings wider than small aircraft. Standing beside one of these creatures on the ground would likely feel similar to standing near a modern glider resting before flight. Their bodies remained relatively lightweight, though their wings extended across astonishing distances, supported by elongated finger bones and powerful membranes of skin and muscle. Unlike birds, whose wings are formed primarily through feathers, pterosaurs flew using thin membranes stretched between elongated limbs. Their bodies evolved specifically for powered flight over immense spans of evolutionary time. Hollow bones reduced weight, while strong chest muscles generated the force necessary for launching into the air. Some species likely relied on coastal winds and rising thermal currents, much like modern large birds soaring above oceans and cliffs today. Giant pterosaurs rest along rocky outcrops facing the wind blowing inland from prehistoric waters. Slowly, one launches itself forward using powerful limbs before catching rising air currents. Its enormous wings spread against the sky, while the coastline falls away beneath it. Far below, marine reptiles move through shallow waters, while dinosaur herds wander near distant river valleys. The skies of the Mesozoic were not empty spaces between ecosystems. They formed active environments filled with hunting, migration, nesting, and survival. Some hunted fish near coastlines, while others searched inland environments for smaller prey or scavenging opportunities. Certain pterosaurs possessed long, narrow jaws, lined with sharp teeth, suited for catching slippery fish near the water surface. Others evolved shorter, stronger skulls, capable of handling different food sources. Some species likely skimmed low above ancient seas, searching for movement beneath the waves, while giant soaring forms crossed enormous distances, using wind currents over coastlines and open ocean. The largest pterosaurs remain among the most astonishing flying animals Earth has ever produced. Species such as Quetzalcoatlus may have stood as tall as giraffes while grounded, yet still possess the ability to launch into the air. Their bodies appear highly specialized toward lightweight efficiency, combined with powerful musculature and sophisticated wing mechanics. Once airborne, they may have traveled great distances while conserving energy through soaring flight rather than constant flapping. Warm Mesozoic climates likely generated strong rising air currents, ideal for supporting large soaring reptiles across coastlines, deserts, and inland environments. The sight of these creatures crossing the sky must have transformed. A Jurassic floodplain already filled with giant sauropods and predators would feel even more extraordinary beneath silhouettes gliding overhead on immense wings. Shadows passed across forests and wetlands, while pterosaurs searched rivers, beaches, and open terrain far below. Many pterosaurs also possessed striking head crests, whose exact purposes remain partly uncertain. Some crests may have helped with display or species recognition. Others could have influenced aerodynamics during flight. In some species, these frameworks reached surprisingly elaborate shapes, rising from skulls in long, colorful extensions. The Mesozoic skies may have carried far more visual variety and display behavior than earlier generations of scientists once imagined. The evolution of flight itself represents a remarkable accomplishment in natural history. Different groups achieved it independently across Earth's history through entirely separate evolutionary pathways. Insects flew long before vertebrates ever left the ground. Pterosaurs later became the first vertebrates to evolve powered flight successfully. Birds followed afterward through feathered dinosaur ancestors. Millions of years later, bats would evolve flight among mammals. Pterosaurs demonstrate how evolution repeatedly explores new ecological opportunities when conditions allow. The skies represented enormous untapped territory filled with food sources, migration routes, and survival advantages unavailable on land. Once flight evolved successfully, pterosaurs expanded into many specialized forms across different environments throughout the Mesozoic. Some species nested in large colonies along coastlines and cliffs, much like modern seabirds. Fossil discoveries suggest certain pterosaurs cared for young within nesting grounds, where generations returned repeatedly over time. Their lives unfolded above ecosystems already operating on massive scales below them. The Mesozoic atmosphere itself may also have supported large flying reptiles more effectively than the modern world in certain ways. Warmer global climates and different environmental conditions could have influenced air density and weather patterns across the skies. Below, giant herbivores move through forests, while predators patrol river valleys near the edge of darkness. Above them all, pterosaurs ride warm currents silently across the sky as stars begin appearing one by one above the world. The entire planet feels layered with life, from ocean depths to forest canopy to open air. Giant reptiles soaring through prehistoric skies with wings wider than small airplanes stretch the imagination toward something almost mythical. Yet their fossils preserve clear evidence that such creatures truly existed for immense spans of time. The Mesozoic was never simply the age of giant dinosaurs walking across the ground. It was a complete planetary ecosystem extending through oceans, coastlines, forests, deserts, and skies. Marine reptiles ruled beneath the waves while pterosaurs crossed ancient horizons overhead. Dinosaurs filled river plains and forests below them. Life occupied nearly every available environment on a scale still difficult for the modern mind to fully comprehend. Even now, fossilized wing bones preserved in ancient rock remind us that Earth once belonged to creatures capable of soaring above worlds no human eye would ever witness directly. Their shadows passed across fern-covered river plains and inland seas long before humanity emerged. The skies themselves carried the memory of the Mesozoic age. As the Cretaceous period unfolded across the planet, the world began changing in ways that would eventually shape the modern landscapes humanity now recognizes. Dinosaurs still dominated the land. Giant predators continued hunting across river plains and forests. Pterosaurs crossed the skies, while marine reptiles ruled the seas. Yet beneath all of that familiar Mesozoic grandeur, another quieter transformation was spreading through ecosystems across the globe. Flowering plants began to appear in increasing numbers. At first, these early flowering plants were relatively modest compared with the conifer forests already established across much of the world. Ancient ferns, cycads, and conifers still remained dominant in many environments, yet flowering plants possessed advantages that would reshape ecosystems with remarkable speed over ages. Their spread marked one of the most important botanical transitions in Earth's history. Before flowering plants became widespread, much of the world's vegetation reproduced through slower systems involving spores or exposed seeds. Flowering plants introduced more specialized reproductive strategies. Bright frameworks evolved to attract insects and other pollinators, while fruits later helped spread seeds across larger distances. Entire ecological relationships began developing between plants and animals in increasingly complex ways. This transformation did not happen overnight. For ages, flowering plants expanded alongside older forms of vegetation. River valleys, wetlands, forest edges, and disturbed environments may have provided some of the first opportunities for these plants to spread successfully. Over time, they diversified into countless forms while reshaping food chains and habitats around them. Some scientists compare the spread of flowering plants to a botanical revolution, and entire ecosystems changed as these new plants altered the framework of forests, feeding patterns, and relationships between species. Insects evolved alongside them in remarkable partnerships. Pollination became increasingly specialized, while plants developed new methods for attracting particular insects through color, scent, shape, and nectar. The relationship between insects and flowering plants represents bees had not yet become as widespread as they are today, though ancient insects already interacted with flowers in increasingly sophisticated ways. Certain plants evolved frameworks suited for specific pollinators, while insects suited body shapes and behaviors, helping them gather food more efficiently. Over immense spans of time, both groups influenced each other's evolution. Giant dinosaurs still move among distant trees, while flowering shrubs spread along riverbanks beneath older conifers towering overhead. Primitive insects drift between blossoms gathering pollen, while feathered dinosaurs dart through dense undergrowth nearby. That strange familiarity becomes one of the defining emotional qualities of the later Cretaceous world. Earlier Mesozoic periods often feel deeply alien because of their vegetation and ecosystems. Jurassic forests filled entirely with conifers and giant ferns seem far removed from modern landscapes. Certain forests and river plains began carrying textures and ecological patterns closer to the modern world. Yet giant dinosaurs still ruled these changing ecosystems. Massive herbivores crossed landscapes where flowering plants increasingly spread beneath their feet. Predators hunted through forests containing vegetation that would not seem entirely unfamiliar to modern eyes. The Cretaceous world occupied a fascinating middle ground between deep prehistoric Earth and the ecosystems that would later support mammals and eventually humanity. Flowering plants also changed food availability within ecosystems. Fruits, seeds, and softer vegetation opened new feeding opportunities for many species. Herbivorous dinosaurs, likely suited to these changing plant communities over time, while insects diversified rapidly alongside expanding floral environments. Forest frameworks themselves evolved as new plant forms spread across different climates and regions. Climate during the Cretaceous remained generally warm across much of the world. Sea levels often stood high enough to flood broad continental regions beneath shallow inland seas. Forests stretched across many environments, while coastal ecosystems flourished beside warm oceans. Dinosaurs inhabited landscapes ranging from humid river valleys to drier uplands and coastal plains, shaped continually by changing sea levels and moving continents. The continents themselves had separated further from their earlier Pangean arrangement by this time. Oceans widened between landmasses, while distinct regional ecosystems developed across different parts of the planet. Dinosaur species evolved separately on isolated continents, producing remarkable diversity during the later Mesozoic. Some regions contained giant predators, unlike anything elsewhere, while isolated herbivore lineages developed unique body forms and survival strategies. Once established successfully, flowering species diversified with astonishing effectiveness across many environments. Their adaptability allowed them to colonize disturbed habitats rapidly, while forming increasingly complex relationships with animals. The forests of the late Cretaceous likely carried richer smells and textures than earlier Mesozoic landscapes. Flowers introduced scents specifically evolved to attract pollinators. Fruits ripened seasonally, while insects filled the warm air around flowering vegetation. Beneath giant trees and prehistoric ferns, smaller flowering plants added layers of ecological complexity, transforming. At the same time, dinosaurs continued behaving according to rhythms established long before flowers appeared widely across the planet. Herds migrated through feeding territories. Predators stalked prey across river valleys and river plains. Feathered species hunted among vegetation, while pterosaurs crossed warm coastal skies overhead. The old Mesozoic world and the emerging modern botanical world overlap together across ages. Modern landscapes still carry the legacy of this ancient botanical expansion. Nearly every flower, fruit tree, grassland, and broadleaf forest alive today traces evolutionary roots back toward the flowering plant revolution of the Cretaceous. Human agriculture itself depends heavily upon descendants of those ancient botanical innovations first spreading beneath dinosaur-ruled skies. Giant reptiles dominated the visible world, though beneath that dramatic surface, quieter evolutionary shifts were preparing the foundations for future ecosystems. Flowers transformed insect evolution. Plant diversity reshaped herbivore feeding patterns. Forest frameworks changed across continents, drifting toward modern positions. Insects drift through fading sunlight, while distant dinosaurs move beside rivers under a darkening sky. Earth still belongs to the Mesozoic, though hints of the future have already begun spreading through roots, leaves, pollen, and blossoms beneath the feet of giants. The spread of flowering plants marked one of the great turning points in Earth's ecological history. Long before humanity would cultivate gardens, orchards, and fields, the foundations of those future landscapes were already emerging. During ancient Earth was becoming more familiar, even while enormous creatures still ruled the land. Flowering plants spread across forests and river valleys. Insects moved among blossoms beneath warm skies, while broadleaf vegetation mixed with older conifers and ferns. Rivers crossed fertile river plains filled with dense plant life and complex ecosystems. Yet despite these increasingly familiar landscapes, giant dinosaurs still dominated much of the planet with extraordinary success. One of the most famous creatures to emerge during this later age was Tyrannosaurus rex. Few prehistoric animals have captured the human imagination more completely. Its enormous skull, powerful jaws, and towering body became symbols of the dinosaur age itself through films, museums, books, and artwork across the modern world. Yet many people misunderstand one important detail about Tyrannosaurus. It did not exist throughout most of dinosaur history. The Mesozoic era lasted roughly 180 million years, though Tyrannosaurus appeared only near the end of that immense timeline. If countless other dinosaur species lived, evolved, and disappeared long before it ever walked across the Earth, giant sauropods, stegosaurs, and many Jurassic predators belonged to worlds already ancient by the time Tyrannosaurus emerged during the final chapter of the Cretaceous. This perspective changes the emotional feeling surrounding Tyrannosaurus. Rather than representing all dinosaur history equally, it becomes more like the last great apex predator of a long age already approaching its conclusion. Entire ecosystems had risen and vanished before its lineage appeared. Continents had drifted apart. Oceans had widened. Flowering plants had spread across landscapes. The environments inhabited by Tyrannosaurus likely felt rich and alive in ways older dinosaur ecosystems did not. Forests contained flowering plants alongside ancient vegetation. Rivers crossed river plains beneath warm seasonal climates. Herds of herbivorous dinosaurs moved through valleys and coastal plains, while feathered species darted among dense undergrowth nearby. The late Cretaceous world combined ancient prehistoric scale with hints of ecosystems that would later become more recognizable to mammals and eventually humans. For many years, popular culture portrayed Tyrannosaurus as little more than a roaring monster driven entirely by aggression. Modern paleontology paints a more interesting picture. Tyrannosaurus was not a mythical beast designed only for violence. It was a highly evolved predator shaped by ages of natural selection within complex ecosystems. Every part of its anatomy reveals evolutionary changes suited for survival in the late Cretaceous world. Its skull alone remains a remarkable framework in the history of terrestrial predators. Massive jaws lined with thick serrated teeth generated extraordinary bite forces capable of crushing bone itself. Unlike some earlier predators that relied primarily on slicing flesh, Tyrannosaurus possessed the power to break through bone and consume nearly entire carcasses. Fossil evidence shows bite marks penetrating deeply into the skeletons of prey animals and even other Tyrannosaurus individuals. Yet raw strength was only part of its success. Scientists now believe Tyrannosaurus likely possessed highly keen senses as well. Studies of the skull suggest excellent smell capabilities through enlarged olfactory regions within the brain. Its vision may also have been surprisingly sophisticated. Forward-facing eyes likely provided strong depth perception, useful for judging distances accurately while hunting or navigating complex terrain. Hearing abilities may have allowed sensitivity to low-frequency sounds traveling across river plains and forests. Rather than a clumsy reptilian monster, Tyrannosaurus appears increasingly like a highly capable sensory animal suited to its environment. Flowering vegetation grows thick beside slow-moving water, while insects drift through humid air. distant herbivores move cautiously near the forest edge beneath towering trees. Somewhere nearby, hidden among vegetation and shadows, a Tyrannosaurus waits silently. The predator does not roar constantly or charge wildly through the landscape. It observes, listens, smells, and moves according to opportunities within its environment. This quieter image often feels more realistic and far more fascinating than exaggerated movie portrayals. Real predators conserve energy because survival depends upon efficiency. Hunting large prey carries risk even for enormous carnivores. Injuries can become fatal in the wild. Tyrannosaurus likely balanced active hunting with scavenging behavior whenever opportunities appeared, much like many successful predators alive today. The herbivores sharing its world were equally impressive. Massive horned dinosaurs such as Triceratops crossed river plains and forests, carrying enormous skull frills and powerful facial horns. These animals were not passive prey waiting helplessly for attack. Fully grown herbivores likely defended themselves fiercely when threatened. Fossils preserve evidence of violent encounters between predators and prey through healed injuries, damaged bones, and tooth-marked skeletons buried within ancient sediments. Giant predators and giant prey shaped each other's evolution continuously across ages. Stronger defenses encouraged stronger hunting evolutionary changes, while predators influenced herd behavior and survival strategies among herbivores. The late Cretaceous world also carried a feeling of immense maturity compared with earlier Mesozoic periods. Dinosaur ecosystems had reached extraordinary complexity by this point. Forests supported layered food chains involving flowering plants, insects, feathered dinosaurs, giant herbivores, apex predators, scavengers, and small mammals living mostly beneath the attention of larger species. Earth felt ancient, stable, and deeply interconnected. At night, those ecosystems must have transformed into atmospheric environments. Giant herbivores rested near river valleys, while predators patrolled silently through darkness, carrying senses sharpened by evolution over time. The late Cretaceous world was alive with movement, even after sunset. The humbling realizations about Tyrannosaurus is that it existed incredibly close to the end of the non-avian dinosaurs. From the perspective of geological time, it lived only shortly before the catastrophe that would transform the planet permanently. The reign of giant dinosaurs had lasted over 100 million years, though the final turning point was already approaching invisibly through space, long before any creature on Earth could perceive it. Still, during its own lifetime, Tyrannosaurus existed simply as part of the natural world around it. It hunted, scavenged, migrated, reproduced, and survived according to environmental pressures shaping all life. The animal itself had no awareness that its age stood near extinction. Like every species before and after it, Tyrannosaurus lived entirely within the present moment of its world. Today, fossils of these predators continue emerging from ancient rock layers, preserving details of lives once lived beneath warm Cretaceous skies. Massive skulls, footprints, teeth, and skeletons remind us that these creatures were not fantasy. They were real animals, occupying ecosystems of extraordinary richness and scale during the final magnificent chapter of. The late Cretaceous world was filled with giant herbivores moving through forests, river plains, and coastal plains beneath warm skies. These animals formed the foundation of many ecosystems, feeding on vast quantities of vegetation while supporting predators that depended upon them for survival. Among the most famous of these herbivores was Triceratops, a massive horned dinosaur whose appearance remains instantly recognizable even today. With its broad skull frill, heavy body, and long facial horns, Triceratops became one of the defining animals of the final age of dinosaurs. Fully grown Triceratops were enormous creatures. Their bodies carried tremendous weight supported by strong muscular limbs, while their skulls alone reached astonishing sizes. The great frill extending behind the head created a silhouette unlike almost any other land animal in Earth's history. Two long horns projected above the eyes, while a shorter horn rose near the nose. Together, these frameworks gave the animal both an intimidating appearance and potentially powerful defensive capabilities against predators. For many years, scientists debated the exact purpose of the large frill covering the back of the skull. Some researchers believe it primarily protected the neck during combat or predator attacks. Others suggest it played important roles in display, communication, or species recognition among individuals. It is possible the frill served multiple purposes simultaneously. Evolution often shapes biological frameworks to perform several functions rather than only one. Warm mist rises above wet grasslands, while flowering vegetation spreads beside river channels, cutting through fertile ground. Young individuals remain close to larger adults as the herd feeds cautiously beneath scattered trees. In the distance, predators move through shadows near the edge of the forest, while insects drift through humid air, illuminated by rising sunlight. Triceratops likely spent much of its life feeding on tough vegetation close to the ground. Its powerful beak and specialized teeth allowed it to shear through dense plant material efficiently. Fossils reveal batteries of teeth packed tightly together within the jaws, forming frameworks capable of processing large amounts of fibrous vegetation. This evolutionary change helped sustain the enormous energy requirements of such massive herbivores. Yet life for giant herbivores was never entirely peaceful. Predators such as Tyrannosaurus shared the same ecosystems, creating constant evolutionary pressure across ages. The relationship between giant carnivores and giant herbivores shaped much of the late Cretaceous world. Defensive horns, thick bodies, herd behavior, powerful jaws, keen senses, and hunting strategies all evolved together within an ongoing balance between predator and prey. Tooth marks appear on skeletons. Healed injuries reveal survival after violent encounters. Broken horns and damaged frills hint at combat between individuals or attacks from predators. Stone can preserve memories of struggle long after the living world that produced them disappears entirely. Some Triceratops fossils contain scars and injuries that healed during the animal's lifetime. These healed wounds suggest individuals survived dangerous encounters rather than dying immediately from every attack or injury. In some cases, puncture marks match the spacing and shape of Tyrannosaurus teeth, closely enough to imply direct interactions between the two species. Such discoveries provide rare glimpses into moments of prehistoric life frozen across ages. A scar carried by a living animal during the late Cretaceous eventually hardened into stone beneath layers of sediment, while continents drifted and ecosystems vanished above it. Tens of ages later, scientists uncover that same wound and reconstruct events from a vanished world through careful study. Bones preserve moments, though never complete narratives. A damaged frill may suggest combat between rival Triceratops males competing for territory or mates. Bite marks on a tail or leg might indicate a failed predator attack survived by the herbivore. Broken ribs could reflect accidents, environmental hardship, or encounters with giant carnivores. Fossils rarely explain everything fully, though they offer extraordinary clues. The late Cretaceous river plains where these animals lived must have felt intensely alive. Giant herbivores moved through flowering vegetation, while predators watched for weakness or separation within herds. Rivers flooded seasonally across broad valleys, renewing fertile ground, supporting dense plant growth. Small mammals hid among roots and undergrowth, while feathered dinosaurs hunted insects through vegetation nearby. Triceratops itself was likely far more dynamic than older museum displays sometimes suggested. Rather than dragging through swamps, these animals probably moved with purposeful strength across dry land and floodplain environments. Herd behavior may have provided additional protection against predators, while also helping younger individuals survive dangerous ecosystems filled with giant carnivores. The relationship between Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops remains one of the most iconic predator-prey pairings in natural history because both animals existed within the same late Cretaceous environments shortly before the Great Extinction event, ending the age of non-avian dinosaurs. Their interactions represented part of a mature ecosystem, refined through immense spans of evolution. Large adults position themselves protectively, while younger individuals remain near the center of the group. The predator studies movement, aware that a charging horned herbivore could inflict devastating injuries. Survival for both hunter and prey depends upon judgment, timing, and experience, rather than simple aggression alone. This complexity reveals something important about ecosystems. The Mesozoic world was not filled with mindless monsters attacking constantly without reason. Real animals lived there according to ecological pressures familiar throughout nature. Predators balanced risk against hunger. Herbivores developed defenses and social strategies. Entire ecosystems functioned through relationships built over ages. Countless struggles, migrations, births, and deaths vanished completely without leaving evidence behind. What scientists uncover today represents only scattered fragments from ecosystems once unimaginably rich with life. Even so, those fragments possess extraordinary power. A single footprint pressed into soft mud beside an ancient river can preserve a moment tens of ages old. Tooth marks on fossil bone reveal interactions between species long extinct. Fossilized nests preserve evidence of parental behavior. Tiny scratches on teeth hint at feeding patterns and diet. Stone becomes a quiet archive recording vanished worlds with astonishing patience. Today, museums display skeletons of Triceratops and Tyrannosaurus standing together beneath artificial light while visitors walk between them. Yet those bones once belonged to living animals, crossing warm river plains, beneath flowering forests during the final age of dinosaurs. While dinosaurs ruled forests, river plains, coastlines, and deserts across the Mesozoic world, the planet changed beneath them in slow and extraordinary ways. Continents drifted across the surface of Earth over ages, while oceans widened, mountains rose, and climates shifted from age to age. No dinosaur could ever perceive these immense geological transformations directly during its lifetime, yet entire ecosystems evolved upon a world constantly reshaping itself beneath their feet. By the later stages of the Mesozoic, the ancient supercontinent Pangaea had already begun breaking apart significantly. Earlier in the Triassic, most major landmasses remained connected in one enormous formation, stretching across much of the globe. Over time, however, deep fractures developed within the crust as tectonic forces pulled the continents away from one another. These separations unfolded with incredible slowness, though across ages the results became immense. The Atlantic Ocean itself began opening during this long process. At first, narrow rift valleys and volcanic regions formed where continents separated. Eventually, seawater entered widening gaps between land masses. Small marine corridors expanded into larger bodies of water. Over immense stretches of time, the Atlantic grew wider and wider, while coastlines drifted farther apart generation after generation. Fingernails grow faster than continents move, yet when enough time passes, even tiny movements reshape the entire planet. Lands once joined together eventually become separated by thousands of miles of ocean. Ancient coastlines disappear, while entirely new marine environments emerge between moving continents. Dinosaurs lived through these planetary changes without awareness of the vast geological story surrounding them. A herd migrating across a floodplain could not know that the land beneath it would one day split apart into separate continents. Forests spread across regions that future oceans would eventually cover. Predators hunted beside rivers flowing through valleys, long vanished beneath erosion and tectonic change. As continents separated, climates and ecosystems changed alongside them. Ocean currents shifted, rainfall patterns altered. Certain regions became wetter, while others dried over time. Isolated landmasses also encouraged evolutionary diversification, because animal populations separated from one another began adapting independently to different environments. Over ages, distinct dinosaur faunas developed across separate continents. Some regions supported giant predators, unlike those elsewhere on Earth. Certain herbivore lineages evolved unique body forms suited to local climates and vegetation. Isolation became one of the driving forces shaping biodiversity during the later Mesozoic. The breakup of continents helped create increasingly specialized ecosystems spread across the changing world. Meanwhile, mountains also continued rising across portions of the planet through tectonic activity. Collisions between crustal plates pushed sections of land upward over time. Volcanic activity reshaped landscapes while earthquakes altered valleys and coastlines generation after generation. Rivers adjusted their paths continuously as the terrain around them changed. The Mesozoic world therefore existed not only as a biological age of dinosaurs, but also as an age of immense geological transformation. Forests, rivers, inland seas, and river plains all rested upon continents still actively moving toward their modern positions. Earth itself remained restless beneath the ecosystems living across its surface. Beyond the horizon, continents continue drifting silently apart at rates too slow for any creature to notice directly. Volcanic mountains rise in distant regions, while shallow inland seas spread across low continental interiors elsewhere. Dinosaurs move through coastal forests completely unaware that the world beneath them is reorganizing itself into the geography humans will one day inherit. Rivers carve canyons grain by grain. Mountains rise inch by inch over time. Oceans open while coastlines migrate across continents. The climates of the Mesozoic reflected these shifting planetary conditions as well. During many periods, global temperatures remained warmer than those of the modern world. Polar ice was limited or absent across certain ages, allowing forests and vegetation to spread far into regions that are cold today. Sea levels often rose high enough to flood large continental interiors beneath shallow, warm seas rich with marine life. These inland seas transformed entire ecosystems. Marine reptiles swam across waters covering regions now far from any coastline. Shorelines shifted repeatedly as sea levels rose and fell over ages. Sediment carried by rivers settled across ancient sea floors, preserving fossils that scientists would later uncover in deserts and mountains, long after the oceans themselves vanished. Warm, humid air moved through flowering forests, while giant reptiles crossed landscapes shaped by active tectonic forces and shifting coastlines. Volcanoes occasionally darkened skies with ash, while earthquakes altered river systems and valleys beneath ancient ecosystems. Yet despite all these enormous changes, life suited continuously. Dinosaurs migrated across shifting environments, forests expanded and retreated according to climate patterns, marine reptiles occupied changing coastlines and inland seas, while pterosaurs crossed skies above transforming continents. The resilience of life across these immense geological transitions remains one of the most extraordinary aspects of Earth's history. Scientists today reconstruct these ancient worlds using clues preserved within rock layers, fossil distributions, mineral formations, and magnetic patterns locked inside ancient volcanic stone. Matching coastlines across modern continents reveal how land masses once fit together long ago. Fossils of related species found on widely separated continents provide additional evidence of ancient connections before oceans expanded between them. For example, parts of modern South America and Africa still fit together well when viewed on geological maps. Their separation unfolded across the Mesozoic as the Atlantic widened over ages. Dinosaurs once walked freely across landscapes, now divided by vast oceans, impossible for them to cross later. Continents continue drifting today exactly as they did during mountains still rise. Oceans still reshape coastlines. The geological story surrounding humanity remains part of the same planetary processes unfolding for hundreds of ages. The dinosaurs inhabited a world undergoing enormous transformation, though from their perspective, daily life still centered upon survival, migration, feeding, reproduction, and seasonal change. Giant herbivores crossed river plains, while predators hunted beside rivers. Feathered species moved through flowering forests, while pterosaurs soared above widening oceans. The continents visible on maps today represent only one moment within a much longer geological story. Long before humanity appeared, dinosaurs inhabited entirely different planetary configurations beneath unfamiliar skies and coastlines. Long after modern civilizations disappear, Earth will continue reshaping itself according to the same slow tectonic forces still active now. The Mesozoic world, therefore, was not static in any sense. It was a living planet in motion. Continents drifted, oceans opened, mountains rose, climates shifted. The astonishing truths about dinosaurs dominated terrestrial ecosystems for spans of time so immense that the human mind struggles to hold them clearly in perspective. Entire mountain ranges rose and eroded during their reign. Continents drifted apart, while oceans widened around them. Countless species evolved, flourished, and disappeared beneath the long shadow of dinosaur history. Human civilization, by comparison, occupies only a tiny fraction of Earth's timeline. The difference in scale becomes almost difficult to comprehend emotionally. All of human civilization, every empire, invention, language, and city, would occupy only a tiny instant compared with the enormous duration of dinosaur history. Human beings often experience their own era as central and permanent because our lives unfold within short spans of time. Modern cities feel ancient after several centuries. Entire nations may seem enduring, despite existing only briefly on geological scales. Yet the dinosaurs lived across ages so vast that humanity barely registers beside them in terms of duration alone. Some dinosaur lineages survived for astonishingly long periods. Species evolved and suited across changing climates, moving continents, rising mountains, spreading forests, and shifting coastlines. Entire ecosystems reorganized repeatedly, while dinosaurs remained dominant across much of the planet. Their success was not temporary or accidental. It represented one of the longest sustained periods of terrestrial dominance by any large animal group in Earth's history. Generations beyond counting lived and vanished, while descendants continued adapting to changing environments. Rivers altered course, forests transformed, oceans expanded between continents. Yet certain dinosaur groups endured through these immense planetary transitions with remarkable resilience. Part of their success came from adaptability. Dinosaurs occupied a tremendous variety of ecological roles. Some became giant herbivores, feeding on enormous quantities of vegetation, while others evolved into swift predators, hunting across forests and river plains. Certain species developed feathers and bird-like traits, while armored herbivores evolved defensive frameworks against predators. Their diversity allowed them to thrive across many different climates and environments. The Mesozoic world itself also provided long periods of relatively mild climates, supporting expansive ecosystems. Forests spread across broad regions, while flowering plants later transformed landscapes during the Cretaceous. Inland seas crossed portions of the continents, while river valleys supported vegetation and rich food chains. Dinosaurs suited successfully to these changing worlds, generation after generation. Dinosaurs were not rushing towards some final outcome. They simply lived according to the rhythms of their environments. Herds migrated seasonally across river plains. Predators followed prey through forests and valleys. Feathered species nested beneath ancient trees, while marine reptiles crossed warm seas beyond the shore. Life unfolded continuously over spans so vast that entire geological ages passed almost invisibly from one generation to the next. Modern humanity often experiences time differently. Days feel hurried. Years pass quickly beneath schedules and constant information. Continents drift patiently. Evolution unfolds. Ecosystems transform over immense intervals impossible to perceive directly during a single lifetime. The longer scientists study dinosaurs, the more complex and dynamic these animals appear. Earlier generations sometimes imagine them as evolutionary failures, doomed inevitably to extinction. Modern paleontology reveals something entirely different. Dinosaurs were extraordinarily successful organisms that suited repeatedly across changing planetary conditions for over 100 million years. Their eventual extinction resulted not from weakness or inferiority, but from catastrophic environmental disruption beyond the scale of ordinary evolutionary pressures. Even the extinction event, ending the non-avian dinosaurs, did not erase the entire lineage. Birds survived and evolved into the modern world. In that sense, dinosaurs never vanished completely at all. Their descendants still cross modern skies, build nests, migrate seasonally, and sing at dawn beside rivers and forests across the planet. Humanity did not replace dinosaurs in a simple linear progression. Instead, mammals expanded after the extinction event, while surviving dinosaur descendants continued alongside them. The modern world emerged from countless overlapping evolutionary histories, stretching backward through ancient ecosystems and vanished ages. Their feathers catch the early light, while insects move through grass, wet with morning moisture. The scene feels ordinary and familiar, yet hidden within it are biological connections extending back into the Jurassic and Cretaceous worlds. They remind us that Earth existed for immense ages before humanity appeared, and will continue changing long after modern civilization becomes part of the distant geological past. Footprints hardened into stone beside rivers, long vanished from the earth. Teeth fell into mud beneath forests that later transformed into rock beneath mountains. Entire skeletons rested buried beneath sediments, while continents drifted toward their modern positions overhead. Every fossil discovered today once belonged to a living animal occupying its own present moment. Dinosaurs did not know they were ancient or prehistoric. They simply inhabited the world available to them beneath the climates, stars, forests, and coastlines of their own time. Their lives unfolded with the same immediacy that modern life feels to humanity now. Still, the memory of those ancient worlds remains preserved within stone, fossil, and living birds crossing modern skies. Their extraordinary success stretched across spans of time so vast that humanity can only glimpse them imperfectly through fossils scattered across the changing surface of the earth. Long before the first human looked upward at the stars, giant dinosaurs crossed river plains beneath unfamiliar constellations, while continents drifted through ancient seas. The earth already carried a history deeper and stranger than modern civilization can fully comprehend. For more than 100 million years, dinosaurs dominated the land with extraordinary success. Forests, river plains, coastlines and deserts all carried the presence of giant reptilian life across the Mesozoic world. Entire ecosystems evolved around them, while continents drifted beneath their feet. Then, near the end of the Cretaceous period, the long age of non-avian dinosaurs approached a sudden and catastrophic turning point, unlike anything most species had ever faced before. About 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid struck the Earth near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula in modern Mexico. The object itself may have measured several miles across, though the true scale of the impact becomes clearer through its consequences rather than its size alone. The collision released unimaginable amounts of energy in only moments. Shockwaves spread outward across the planet, while enormous quantities of rock, vapor, ash, and debris blasted high into the atmosphere. The force of the impact must have transformed the surrounding region instantly. Forests ignited, oceans surged violently against coastlines, earthquakes shook distant landscapes, while molten material rained back downward through the sky. Yet the most devastating effects unfolded more during the weeks, months, and years afterward as the atmosphere itself changed. Dust and debris thrown into the upper atmosphere likely blocked large amounts of sunlight from reaching the surface of the Earth. Daylight dimmed beneath thick haze spreading around the globe. Temperatures dropped as ecosystems struggled beneath darkened skies. Plants depended upon sunlight for survival, and when plant life collapsed, food chains throughout the world began unraveling with terrifying speed. Forests that once thrived under warm sunlight begin failing as temperatures fall and photosynthesis weakens. Rivers carry dead vegetation through river plains, while herbivorous dinosaurs struggle to find enough food across damaged ecosystems. Predators suffer as prey populations decline. Entire biological systems built over ages begin collapsing within comparatively brief spans of time. The extinction that followed did not erase every living thing. Many species survived, including birds, mammals, crocodilians, turtles, insects, amphibians, and countless marine organisms. Yet the non-avian dinosaurs disappeared completely. The great giant herbivores and giant predators ruling the land for over 100 million years vanished from the Earth. This event remains one of the great turning points in natural history because it reshaped the future of life itself. Had the asteroid missed the Earth entirely, mammals may never have expanded into the dominant ecological roles they later occupied. Humanity itself might never have emerged at all. In a profound sense, the modern world exists partly because of that catastrophe unfolding at the end of the Cretaceous. Still, that extinction events are not dramatic movie scenes experienced by the entire planet at once. Real ecosystems collapse unevenly across time and geography. Some regions suffer immediate devastation, while others decline more. Certain species survive longer than others, depending on food sources, climate resilience, body size, and ecological flexibility. The end of the dinosaurs was likely a long period of environmental stress, rather than one single terrible day. Large animals often suffer especially during ecological collapse because they require enormous amounts of food and stable ecosystems to survive. Giant herbivorous dinosaurs depended upon vast quantities of vegetation each day. When plant life declined beneath darkened skies, those food chains became increasingly fragile. Predators depending upon large herbivores suffered soon afterward as prey populations collapsed. Smaller adaptable species often possess advantages during periods of environmental crisis. Birds, for example, may have survived partly because certain species required less food and could exploit a wider range of ecological opportunities. Some may have fed on seeds, insects, or scavenged material, capable of persisting even during difficult conditions. Small mammals also survived through flexibility, burrowing behavior, and varied diets, helping them endure unstable environments. Forests thin while temperatures fluctuate beneath strange darkened skies. Rivers carry ash and debris through damaged valleys while food grows increasingly scarce. Animals continue searching for survival without any understanding that their age is nearing its end. The skies themselves may have looked unfamiliar during this period. Dust and atmospheric particles likely created long, dim sunsets and reduced daylight across many regions. Fires ignited by impact debris may have burned through forests, while smoke spread through the atmosphere alongside volcanic gases and ash. Entire climates shifted rapidly compared with the slow environmental changes most species had suited to previously. Some birds survived, certain plants recovered, insects persisted through damaged ecosystems, small mammals emerged cautiously into newly available ecological opportunities after the extinction passed. Earth itself healed over time, while entirely new ecosystems began forming atop the ruins of the Mesozoic world. Thin geological layers rich in iridium, an element associated with asteroids, appear in rock formations marking the boundary between the Cretaceous and the following Paleogene period. Shocked quartz and microscopic impact debris provide additional clues preserved within stone across ages. The crater left by the asteroid still exists as well, though buried beneath layers of sediment and modern landscape. Scientists studying its framework discovered evidence supporting the impact theory now widely accepted as the primary driver behind the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs. Deep beneath the modern Yucatan Peninsula rests the scar from one of the most consequential moments in Earth's history. For over 100 million years, dinosaurs ruled the land with extraordinary success. Their ecosystems appeared stable and deeply established. Yet one catastrophic event altered the trajectory of evolution permanently. Entire dynasties vanished, while smaller survivors inherited the transformed world afterward. One branch of the dinosaur family endured and evolved into the modern world. Every sparrow, owl, eagle, and seabird alive today represents continuity with the ancient age of dinosaurs. Feathers still cross modern skies, carrying biological histories older than humanity itself. The giant herbivores are gone. The thunder of enormous footsteps across river plains has faded into silence, yet small birds still move through branches, while mammals search cautiously beneath vegetation. Sunlight returns to recovering ecosystems as new evolutionary possibilities begin unfolding from catastrophe. The age of non-avian dinosaurs ended not because they were weak or unsuccessful, but because Earth experienced extraordinary environmental disruption on a planetary scale. Their extinction marked the close of one of the grandest chapters in natural history, though not the complete disappearance of dinosaurs altogether. Part of their lineage survived and still lives around us now. After the extinction at the end of the Cretaceous, the Earth entered a quieter and unfamiliar age. The giant non-avian dinosaurs that once dominated forests, river plains, and coastal plains were gone. No enormous sauropods crossed fern-covered valleys anymore. No Tyrannosaurus hunted through flowering forests beneath prehistoric skies. The great age of giant reptiles had ended, and for a time, yet life did not stop. Forests began recovering beneath clearer skies as sunlight returned more fully to the planet. Plants spread once again through damaged environments, while rivers carried fresh sediment across river plains, recovering from ecological collapse. Insects persisted. Birds continued moving through branches overhead. Small mammals emerged cautiously into ecosystems transformed by extinction. The mammals surviving this catastrophe were not yet the dominant animals they would later become. During much of the Mesozoic, mammals remained relatively small and often lived beneath the attention of giant dinosaurs. Many occupied nocturnal ecological roles, feeding on insects, seeds, fruits, or small prey, while larger reptiles controlled the major ecosystems around them. For ages, mammals existed alongside dinosaurs without replacing them. After the extinction, however, enormous ecological opportunities suddenly became available. Giant herbivores no longer consumed vast quantities of vegetation. Apex predators vanished from the land. Forests, rivers, wetlands, and coastlines contained open niches waiting to be filled by surviving species capable of adapting to the changed world. Mammals began diversifying into these spaces over time. At first, the transformation remained subtle. Small mammalian species spread cautiously through recovering forests, while birds continued carrying forward the surviving dinosaur lineage overhead. Ecosystems reorganized themselves rather than instantly. Evolution always works patiently across countless generations. Tiny differences accumulate until entire worlds begin looking different from what came before. The early Paleogene world still carried echoes of the Mesozoic. Crocodilians remained present along rivers and wetlands. Birds descended from feathered dinosaurs filled the skies. Forests still contained plant lineages, rooted deep within the Cretaceous world. Yet the balance had shifted permanently. Mammals would now expand into ecological roles, unavailable to them during the long reign of giant dinosaurs. Some mammals evolved toward larger body sizes once the threat from giant predators disappeared. Others specialized for climbing, digging, swimming, or running through newly available habitats. Primates would eventually emerge among forest-dwelling mammals much later in this unfolding story. Humanity itself remained unimaginably distant during these early recovery ages, though the foundations of that future had already been shaped by the extinction that ended the Mesozoic. Without the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs, mammals may never have diversified in the same way. Primates may never have become widespread. Human beings may never have appeared at all. The history of life often turns upon events no species can predict or control. At the same time, dinosaurs never vanished completely from the earth. Birds survived and evolved across forests, wetlands, coastlines, mountains, and eventually human cities. Every modern bird remains part of the dinosaur lineage, stretching backward into the Jurassic and Cretaceous worlds. Part of it suited and endured. Ducks glide across the surface while smaller birds call from nearby branches. The scene feels peaceful and ordinary, though hidden within it are evolutionary connections extending back into worlds filled with giant reptiles and ancient forests. Modern birds still carry anatomical features inherited from dinosaur ancestors through tens of ages of survival and evolutionary change. Forests themselves transformed significantly during these ages. Flowering plants continued spreading widely across the planet, while grasses would later emerge and reshape entire ecosystems again. Insects diversified alongside changing plant communities. Birds suited into countless ecological roles, ranging from soaring hunters to tiny forest species, feeding among branches and flowers. The modern biological world assembled itself piece by piece from the survivors of extinction. Human beings eventually appeared within a world already shaped profoundly by those ancient events. The continents we inhabit, the birds flying overhead, the flowering plants covering forests and fields, and even the dominance of mammals, all connect indirectly to the ending of the dinosaur age. Humanity inherited a planet carrying deep biological memory from worlds far older than civilization itself. Even the fuels powering modern industry partly originate from ancient ecosystems reaching back toward the Mesozoic and earlier periods. Coal, oil, and natural gas form through organic material buried beneath sediments across immense spans of geological time. The modern world still depends materially upon the remains of ancient biological systems preserved beneath the earth. The fossil record reveals these transitions layer by layer. Beneath the extinction boundary lie giant dinosaurs, marine reptiles, and pterosaurs ruling vast Mesozoic ecosystems. Above it, mammals diversify while birds continue evolving across recovering landscapes. Stone preserves the slow transfer between ages across ages. Researchers describe extinction events not as endings alone, but as turning points redirecting the future of life. The extinction of non-avian dinosaurs closed one extraordinary chapter while opening possibilities for entirely different evolutionary pathways afterward. Mammals inherited opportunities once unavailable to them beneath dinosaur-dominated ecosystems. Still, the Mesozoic never truly disappeared. Birds remain living dinosaurs. Flowering plants spread during the Cretaceous still shape modern ecosystems. Continents continue drifting according to tectonic forces, active during rivers, still carve valleys while mountains rise and erode beneath changing climates. The Earth today remains connected continuously to those ancient worlds through geology, evolution, and living biology. Quietly, over time, the foundations of the modern Earth began assembling themselves from the aftermath of catastrophe. Humanity now studies those vanished worlds through fossils preserved beneath deserts, cliffs, mountains, and ancient seabeds. We reconstruct giant ecosystems from fragments of bone, footprints, teeth, feathers, and stone. In doing so, we uncover not only the history of dinosaurs, but the deeper story of how the modern world itself came to exist. Their ecosystems transformed landscapes, influenced evolution, and set the stage for future life long after their dominance ended. Even now, while birds cross modern skies and flowering forests cover the continents, the legacy of the Mesozoic continues surrounding us every day. The Mesozoic was never only a world of giant reptiles. Dinosaurs crossed river plains beneath towering conifers, while pterosaurs drifted overhead on warm air currents rising from ancient valleys. Marine reptiles moved silently beneath inland seas, while feathered hunters searched through dense undergrowth near flowering plants spreading across the Cretaceous world. When imagined, these ecosystems stop feeling like distant museum displays and begin feeling alive again. Warm rain falls through Jurassic forests, while giant sauropods move between trees, carrying bodies heavier than any modern land animal. Ferns bend beneath enormous footsteps, while insects drift through humid air, glowing softly beneath evening sunlight. Rivers carry sediment through valleys that no longer exist, except within layers of buried stone. Forests, unlike any modern ecosystem, stretched across the continents. Oceans covered regions now dry land. Giant reptiles ruled environments operating on scales difficult for the modern mind to fully absorb. At the same time, the Mesozoic also reveals deep continuity between ancient life and the world surrounding humanity today. Birds remain living descendants of feathered dinosaurs. Flowering plants first spreading during the Cretaceous still shape forests, grasslands, gardens and farms across the modern Earth. Continents continue drifting exactly as they did beneath dinosaur feet ages ago. Wind moves softly through leaves while insects hum beyond the edge of fading light. Most people would simply experience an ordinary evening scene. Yet hidden beneath that familiar atmosphere are biological connections, reaching backward into the Jurassic and Cretaceous worlds. The bird resting on a nearby branch carries anatomy inherited from dinosaur ancestors. The flowering plants surrounding the forest spread first during the age of giant reptiles. The Earth does not erase its history completely. Ancient worlds leave traces behind within living ecosystems, geological formations, and evolutionary lineages surviving over time. Every fossil uncovered from Mesozoic rock represents not only extinction, but continuity as well. Life changes forms, adapts, survives, and reshapes itself again and again beneath shifting planetary conditions. Civilizations rise and fall quickly compared with geological ages. Entire cultures occupy only tiny moments beside the ages dinosaurs ruled the Earth. Even mountains feel temporary when viewed across enough time. Coastlines migrate, oceans open and close, forests spread where deserts once stood. Yet despite the immense scale of these changes, daily life for individual creatures likely remained immediate and ordinary from their own perspective. A Jurassic sauropod still searched for food and water beneath warm skies. A feathered predator still watched for movement through vegetation. A pterosaur still rode ocean winds searching coastlines for fish near the surface of the sea. The larger story of geological time unfolded invisibly around them, while each animal simply lived within its own present moment. This connection between ordinary life and immense planetary history feels deeply human in a quiet way. Humanity also exists within larger forces impossible to perceive fully during individual lifetimes. Continents continue moving now. Evolution continues now. Climates continue changing now. The Earth beneath modern cities remains part of the same ancient planetary story stretching back far before. At night, the Mesozoic world must have felt especially atmospheric. Insects drifted through humid air, while distant calls echoed across wetlands. Moonlight reflected from inland seas, where marine reptiles surfaced beneath the night sky. Entire ecosystems continued moving even after sunset, across landscapes no human eyes would ever witness directly. Sometimes it is easy to think of dinosaurs only as symbols of extinction or vanished worlds. Yet for most of their history, dinosaurs were simply successful animals living ordinary lives within their environments. They nested, migrated, hunted, rested, and survived across one of the longest-lasting eras of terrestrial dominance in Earth's history. Their existence was not temporary from their perspective. It lasted longer than humanity has existed by an almost unimaginable margin. The survival of birds after the extinction adds another layer of meaning to this story. Part of that world endured and continues living around us now. Every gull crossing the ocean, every owl hunting through darkness, and every sparrow resting beside a city sidewalk represents continuity with ancient Mesozoic ecosystems stretching backward tens of ages. Small birds still moved through branches, while forests returned to damaged landscapes. Mammals searched cautiously beneath undergrowth, while rivers continued flowing toward ancient seas. Humanity eventually emerged within a world profoundly shaped by those earlier ages. The modern Earth inherited its continents, ecosystems, plant life, and surviving dinosaur lineage from ancient evolutionary histories unfolding long before human civilization appeared. Even now, fossils resting beneath deserts, mountains, cliffs, and forests preserve memories of worlds operating on scales larger and stranger than modern life can easily imagine. Giant herbivores crossed fern-covered plains, while predators hunted through flowering forests. Pterosaurs drifted above warm coastlines, while marine reptiles ruled inland seas. Feathered dinosaurs gave rise to birds still crossing modern skies today. And even now, on quiet evenings when birds settle into trees beneath fading sunlight, a small part of the Mesozoic world still lingers beside the modern Earth, alive within feathers, forests, rivers, and the long unbroken memory of life itself. The continents move, while forests spread and retreat over time. Oceans widen, mountains rise. The journey begins again in the Triassic, where the world still carries scars from the great extinction that came before it. Pangaea stretches across enormous distances beneath harsh sunlight, while broad desert regions dominate much of the interior landscape. Rivers cut through dry river plains, bordered by sparse forests of primitive conifers and ferns. Strange reptiles wander through recovering ecosystems still uncertain after catastrophe reshaped life across the Earth. Seasonal storms roll across exposed terrain, while winds carry dust through valleys and dry basins. Early dinosaurs move cautiously through these environments beside crocodile relatives and other reptilian competitors. They are still small compared with the giants that will eventually follow. Nothing about them yet suggests the extraordinary dominance their descendants will later achieve. As ages pass, the world begins changing. Forests spread farther across wetter regions, while ecosystems grow richer and more stable. Dinosaurs diversify into different ecological roles. Some become more effective predators, while others adapt toward herbivorous lifestyles, feeding on increasingly abundant vegetation. Rivers wander through wider river plains, while climates soften across parts of the planet. Eventually, the Jurassic arrives, and the Earth transforms into one of the grandest biological worlds in natural history. Warm, humid forests stretch across enormous territories beneath towering conifers. Ferns blanket river valleys and wetlands, while giant sauropods move through the landscape like living monuments. Their necks rise above the vegetation, while immense tails trail behind bodies heavier than any modern land animal. The scale of the Jurassic feels almost dreamlike when imagined fully. Herds of giant herbivores migrate across broad plains, while stegosaurs feed among dense fern growth near forest edges. Insects drift through humid air beneath prehistoric trees, while predators move silently between shadows, searching for weakness among the giants. Entire ecosystems pulse with life operating on scales difficult for modern terrestrial environments to equal. Above these landscapes, pterosaurs glide through warm skies on enormous wings. Some skim ancient coastlines searching for fish, while others soar high above inland valleys using rising air currents. Their shadows drift across forests and rivers far below, while marine reptiles patrol warm seas beyond the shore. The Mesozoic world exists not only across land, but through sky and ocean as well. Beneath the surface of prehistoric seas, plesiosaurs move silently through shifting light, while ichthyosaurs pursue schools of fish across warm marine environments. Coral systems flourish beneath shallow waters, while inland seas flood portions of the continents. Coastlines migrate as tectonic forces continue pulling the planet apart inch by inch across ages. As time advances deeper into the Cretaceous, flowering plants begin spreading across the Earth. At first they remain subtle additions beneath older forests, dominated by conifers and ferns. Then, generation after generation, flowers, fruits, and new plant forms reshape ecosystems around them. Insects evolve alongside these changing environments, while forests become increasingly familiar in certain ways to modern eyes. Yet giant dinosaurs still rule these landscapes completely. Triceratops herds move through flowering vegetation near broad river systems, while feathered predators hunt among dense undergrowth. Tyrannosaurus stalks ancient river plains carrying senses sharpened over time of evolution. The late Cretaceous world feels ancient and modern at the same time, balanced between deep prehistoric history and ecosystems approaching forms more recognizable to humanity. The skies also continue changing through these ages. Feathered dinosaurs diversify while birds emerge from ancient evolutionary lineages stretching backward through the Jurassic world. Small winged creatures move between branches beneath warm sunlight, while giant pterosaurs still dominate open skies above coastlines and inland plains. Meanwhile, Earth never stops moving beneath everything else. The Atlantic Ocean widens while continents drift farther apart. Mountain ranges rise while volcanic regions reshape portions of the planet. Forests migrate according to changing climates, while inland seas advance and retreat across continental interiors. Dinosaurs live their lives upon a world constantly transforming beneath them, without any awareness of the immense geological story unfolding around them. Triassic deserts cooled beneath darkness, while unfamiliar reptilian calls echoed through dry valleys. Jurassic forests filled with warm mist and distant movement near riverbanks, where giant herbivores rested until dawn. Cretaceous river plains shimmered beneath moonlight, while insects drifted through flowering vegetation beside ancient rivers. Every age of the Mesozoic possessed its own identity. The Triassic feels uncertain and experimental as life rebuilds after catastrophe. The Jurassic expands outward into giant rich ecosystems, operating at immense biological scale. The Cretaceous introduces flowering plants and increasingly modern ecological textures, even while giant dinosaurs still dominate the land. The continuity between these worlds remains. Dinosaurs evolved continuously across all three periods, while ecosystems transformed around them. Feathered species emerged, birds appeared, continents separated, forests changed composition. Yet life suited again and again beneath shifting planetary conditions. Somewhere overhead, birds descended from feathered dinosaurs cross the fading light, while pterosaurs drift farther toward the horizon, above inland seas. Beneath the ground itself, tectonic forces continue shaping the future world, and invisibly. The deeper one travels into the Mesozoic, the more alive and interconnected it becomes. Dinosaurs were never isolated monsters wandering through empty landscapes. They existed within complete ecosystems filled with plants, insects, rivers, coastlines, predators, weather, migration, reproduction, and geological transformation. Their world was dynamic, beautiful, dangerous, and constantly changing across spans of time beyond ordinary imagination. And through all those immense ages, the Earth remained patient. Forests rose and vanished, species evolved and disappeared, yet traces remain everywhere. Fossils sleep beneath cliffs and deserts. Birds still carry the surviving dinosaur lineage through modern skies. Flowering plants first spreading during the Cretaceous continue covering forests and fields today. The Mesozoic never vanished completely. Its memory still lingers through stone, feather, forest, and the living continuity of Earth. The light begins fading across the world as the long age of dinosaurs settles into evening once more. Far across a Jurassic floodplain, giant sauropods travel toward water beneath towering conifers darkening against the horizon. Their immense bodies cast long shadows across fern-covered ground, while insects drift through heavy evening air, still carrying the warmth of the day. Each footstep presses softly into wet sediment near ancient riverbanks, where footprints may remain long enough to harden into stone beneath future ages. Nearby, smaller dinosaurs move through undergrowth beneath the giants. Feathered hunters watch from vegetation, while distant predators patrol forest edges with patient silence. The ecosystem remains alive with movement, even as daylight fades. Somewhere beyond the trees, warm mist gathers above wetlands, where amphibians and insects fill the dusk with quiet sound. Along a Cretaceous coastline, flowering plants sway beside broad rivers, flowing toward ancient seas. Pterosaurs drift overhead on cooling air currents, while marine reptiles surface briefly beyond the shoreline before disappearing beneath dark water once again. The continents continue drifting apart beneath everything else, though no living creature notices the immense geological story unfolding silently beneath the world. The sky deepens toward night, while stars begin appearing above forests. Different constellations shine over the Mesozoic Earth, compared with the modern heavens familiar to humanity now. Yet even beneath those unfamiliar skies, life follows patterns still recognizable today. Creatures search for shelter. Predators move through darkness. Rivers continue flowing toward distant oceans. Instead, it becomes simply another living world existing naturally beneath the turning planet. Giant reptiles resting beside rivers, feathered species settling into trees, insects drifting through humid air, and warm waves reaching ancient shores, all become part of an ordinary evening inside an extraordinary age. The earth itself feels patient through all these scenes. Mountains rise beyond the horizon, while forests spread across river plains, renewed by seasonal rains. Inland seas reflect fading light beneath skies crossed by flying reptiles. Continents continue their long, invisible movement toward future positions no dinosaur will ever witness directly. Flowering vegetation moves beside the water, while distant herbivores fade into darkness near the edge of the forest. Somewhere overhead, feathered descendants of earlier dinosaur lineages move through branches preparing for night. The connection between ancient and modern life feels especially close during moments like these. Birds remain one of the quiet miracles left behind by the Mesozoic world. Their feathers, lungs, bones, and movements still carry evolutionary memory. From every modern bird crossing the sky represents continuity, stretching backward across extinction, catastrophe, moving continents, and vanished ecosystems into forests ages old. A gull gliding above the ocean today carries biological history older than humanity. A robin perched beside a modern window remains connected through evolution to feathered dinosaurs hunting through ancient undergrowth beneath giant conifers. Part of it still wakes each morning beside rivers, coastlines, mountains, and forests across the modern Earth. The longer one reflects upon the Mesozoic, the more the modern world begins feeling layered with hidden continuity. Mountains once stood beneath ancient seas. Deserts once carried giant forests. Regions now crowded with cities once belonged to dinosaurs, crossing river plains beneath prehistoric skies. The earth remembers all of it beneath stone and sediment. There is also comfort in realizing how vast the story of life truly is. Human civilization occupies only a brief recent moment within a much older planetary history filled with transformation, extinction, recovery, and renewal. Forests rise and vanish, oceans open and close, species evolve and disappear, yet life itself continues flowing forward endlessly. The dinosaurs ruled the Earth for ages beyond easy comparison. They crossed the planet while continents drifted apart beneath them. Their ecosystems reached scales almost impossible for modern terrestrial life to equal. And though their great age eventually ended, their influence never fully disappeared from the world. Even now, fossils rest beneath cliffs, mountains and deserts, waiting patiently within layers of ancient rock. Footprints pressed into soft mud, tens of ages ago, remain preserved beneath the earth. Feather impressions hidden inside stone still record delicate details from vanished species. Ancient rivers survive as mineral traces beneath landscapes transformed completely since the Mesozoic ended. At night, when the modern world grows quieter and birds settle into darkness beneath the stars, the distance between ancient Earth and the present can begin to feel surprisingly small. Wind still moves through forests, rivers still cross valleys, oceans still rise against coastlines beneath moonlight. The same planet carrying. And somewhere deep beneath modern cities, forests, and mountains, the memory of the Mesozoic still sleeps within stone. Giant sauropods still walk silently across fossil river plains preserved underground. Pterosaurs still drift across vanished coastlines within ancient rock layers. Feathered dinosaurs still hunt through forests hidden beneath cliffs and deserts shaped by ages of change. It became part of the living Earth itself. Part of it survives through birds crossing the modern sky. Part of it remains preserved beneath the ground. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Mesozoic.